Okay, so this is the tutorial for the photo final, and it is a double exposure tutorial. It won't take that long, so it's way less extensive than the album cover project, luckily. And this is the only tutorial that you'll need to watch if you need a review from what we covered in class. So the first thing, you can see the Hey Arnold background right now from our nostalgia and archival unit. Right now, I'm pulling up on the screen what a double exposure looks like. So what normally comes up on Google is photoshopped double exposure images. So this is similar to the style we're going to go with, but typically this is includes a lot more steps to kind of have that clear background. And you can see these images are definitely Photoshop, where it doesn't necessarily replicate film, but it replicates just the double exposure of film. So that being said, we're going to do more so of a style of a film double exposure where it's the complete image laid on top of the next. It's not as clean, but it still works really well and can still convey a message or kind of a deeper meaning than just a single image or a single frame would. So yeah, there's a lot of examples here. So you can research images too if you'd like some inspiration. And then here are also some examples that I've taken on film. So this is just my friend Lace in the park, where these images, I did not know how they would turn out until the film was processed. In this case, this is a Polaroid, so it was pretty instant. But then in this case with my aunt, I really had no idea how the image would turn out. Placement with things were really hard to see and conceptualize, so it was really a risk to do the double exposure. But that's actually what makes it really fun too, is when you get it back and see the film, that's part of the surprise. And if it works out, it's even more exciting. So to replicate that, you are obviously using a digital camera, not film, but we're still going to do a similar style. And actually this process that I'm showing you right now is a lot quicker than it would be for the white background double exposures. So I'm going to use this image of my neighbor Richard that I took a couple years ago. Definitely would recommend safely taking a portrait in this pandemic time. So probably someone you already live with, or just someone who you see regularly already. So I have this image of Richard. You'll see here it's edited already, so you can use Lightroom if you'd like to pre-edit the photo. Definitely would recommend that if you want to change the exposure or change it to black and white. So the first thing I'm doing is dragging this into Photoshop, and you'll see here in Photoshop, it is the background, it is locked. I'm going to leave it locked because I'm not going to change this image at all, and the placement will stay the same. But then I'm going to pick an image that I would like to overlay, and I decided to go with this image because I took this image also a couple years ago, but it's not directly correlated to Richard, or there's not a direct association, but because of his interest in music and jazz music, and his taste in music in general kind of reminds me of this image, as this kind of replicates the feeling of sound, or how we visualize sound. So definitely think about our senses assignment in this final, and how you can kind of think about things abstractly. Nothing has to be direct or literal, but you can think about feelings and emotions and senses in an abstract way. So that being said, I'm going to drag this photo in directly onto the next. So you'll see here it's oriented in a way that is directly overlaid, but I want it to take up the whole photo, and I'm actually going to tilt it. So this way it fits the photo completely. Since the portrait is a vertical orientation, I'm just going to follow that too. And also, with expanding the image, you do not need to hold down Shift like we learned in Illustrator. The orientation stays the same even without holding Shift. So if you actually do hold Shift, you'll see that's when the orientation starts to get messed up. So just hold the arrows. Okay, so now I have it placed. I'm not going to hit enter, so I still have the ability to move stuff around, but I'm going to come over here, and on this tab that says normal, I'm going to hit lighten. So these are all options of overlaying 2 images. You can literally hit overlay and it'll do that, but I feel like for this assignment, it's probably best to hit lighten. I've tested and experimented with these many times, and typically lighten is the best one to replicate that double exposure look. So again, not limited to, but we would just recommend using it. Okay, so now I'm kind of finding a spot that fits well where Richard can still be seen, but then it's not so subtle where you don't even see that it's a double exposure. So kind of finding that balance where it's still legible. Maybe, yeah, we still want his hands to be seen. You can even rotate the image like this, which I'm going to do a little bit. And I actually think I'm going to leave it there. So I'm going to hit enter and let's see what this looks like. So yeah, this actually, the edge of the photo is not that sharp. So in the case if I used a photo that like was really light on the bottom, like you can see up here, it kind of fades into white. Since the base of the photo is really dark, it really actually fades in nicely in this case, which is not always the case. So I would recommend using maybe having a number of backgrounds or a number of portraits to just mess around with. It's usually best to like do a complete overlay where the top image is completely overlaid the next one. So really just mess around with it. And yeah, it'll take some time, but yeah, just as long as it's legible and then you can still see the double exposure, then you should be good. Okay, I actually like the way this is set up, so I'm going to teach you how to save. So once you have it ready to go, you feel like the placement is good and you would like to export it, all you got to do is do File, Export, Export As, and it should already be on JPEG. So let's see here. Yep, format JPEG, quality 100. Definitely want that higher quality image. And then, yeah, let it load for a second. And then hit export all. So you'll see it's actually kind of grainy right now, but when it exports, it won't be. So I'm going to name it to something meaningful, and that makes sense for the double exposure. So let's do Richard Lost in Music. Definitely think about him in that way of like when he plays music. I feel like actually similar to Soul, now that I'm thinking about it, the way the main character, which I'm blanking on his name, like gets lost in music, and music has that power, especially like jazz specifically. All right, so now it should be saved onto the desktop. So you'll see here, and yeah, it's actually clear to see when you save it. Like you can actually zoom in and like see the details in the image. You can do that in Photoshop too, with Command Plus. So this is something in Illustrator too, just to see the details better. All right, so that's pretty much everything. Once it's saved to your desktop, that's when you can upload it to Google Classroom under the final section, and make sure you upload it by class time next week. I did forget to add is to show you what opacity is. So in this double exposure, you can see here I am on layer 2, and that means that whatever I do right now, it'll only affect this layer. So let's say I want to change the opacity, and that means really how clear or subtle something is. So let's say I wanted to just keep it the way it is, keep it at 100% for opacity, but if it is too overtaken, or like it's really distracting from the portrait, what I could do is lower it. So kind of gauge, you'll see as I'm lowering it, it'll follow how much is necessary. So again, I'm still going to keep it at 100, but yeah, this is really depending and situational on however your photograph looks, and is a good tool to use if you are not finding that the double exposure like it's just not fitting well, or like the overlaying image is overtaken the background image of the portrait. So really mess around with this. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to cover is how to reselect something that has already been placed and that it's not letting you select it. So you'll see here, it's like allowing me to select it now, but the way to do that is making sure you're on the layer, so SF2, and then clicking this top selection tool on the top left. It says the move tool. So that's how you move things around. And if you'd like to replace it again, and then if that toolbar is not there, what you do is window, workspace, and then essentials. Essentials should be there, but in the case it's not, that's how you do that. And to recrop or size, what you do is Command T. So on MacBooks, it's the Command key and then the letter T. And once you do that, it allows you to move it around, recrop it if you'd like, whatever you'd like to do after you place it. So this is in the case that you can't access it anymore because it's not selected. But again, Command T is the way to do that. That is everything. Thank you for watching. Hope this was helpful. And please, not like and subscribe my channel. It sounded like I was going to say that. Please ask me any questions if you need, because I'm happy to clarify things or if things are going wrong. All right, good luck with your final. You got this. Excited to see the things you create, because I know it'll be awesome and super meaningful. So cool.